This is a factual guide to the USA B1/B2 visa interview. We will be breaking down the entire process, strictly based on official United States guidelines, to provide a clear and precise understanding of what you should expect. First, a critical disclaimer. Please understand that this guide is for educational purposes only. It is not and should not be considered legal or immigration advice. All the information we'll be covering is based on publicly available guidelines from the U.S. Department of State, current as of 2026. It is absolutely essential that you verify all details through official U.S. government sources.
All right, let's get started. The single most important concept you need to grasp is this. The B1/B2 visa interview is not a friendly conversation. It is a risk assessment. The entire interaction is designed for one primary purpose, to allow a consular officer to determine if you will return to your home country after your temporary visit. Everything else is secondary to that one question.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll cover the interview's core purpose. Then, we'll explain the common questions and what they're really asking. After that, we'll look at critical interview red flags. We'll also discuss the serious mistake of misrepresentation. And finally, we'll help you understand what a visa refusal actually means.
Okay, let's begin with the absolute foundation of this process. You need to understand that under United States law, every B1/B2 visa applicant is presumed to be an intending immigrant until they prove otherwise. The burden of proof is entirely on you. Your job in that short interview is to provide convincing evidence that you are in fact a temporary visitor with no intention of staying.
So what exactly is a B1/B2 visa? Well, according to the official guidelines, its purpose is very specific. It's a temporary visa for activities like tourism, visiting family, or some limited business functions. What's just as important is what it is not for. It is not for work, it is not for long-term study, and it is definitely not for staying indefinitely. This distinction is absolutely crucial to remember.
All right, so how does this risk assessment actually work in practice? Well, it happens through a series of very direct, very simple questions. You should think of each question as a tool the officer uses to measure your ties to your home country and to verify the temporary nature of your trip.
The first question you will almost certainly be asked is, why are you traveling to the United States? This question is a direct test of your intent. The officer is listening for a purpose that is very specific, limited in scope, and has a clear end date. Your answer must be concise, and it has to align perfectly with the definition of a temporary visitor. So let's compare two answers. A weak answer would be something like, I want to explore the US. You can see how that's vague, right? It sounds like you don't have a specific plan. A strong answer, on the other hand, is precise. For example, I'm visiting New York and Washington for tourism for 12 days during my annual leave. This answer is strong because it's specific, it's time-bound, and it even references a strong tie back home, your job.
Next up, how long will you stay? This is another critical piece of the risk assessment puzzle. You need to know that, according to the official guidelines, the longer your intended stay, the higher the perceived risk that you might overstay. Any hint of an indefinite stay is a major red flag.
Let's look at an example. A risky answer is 3 to 4 months, maybe longer. The phrase maybe longer is the problem there. It's indefinite. A much safer answer is something like 10 days. I have approved leave from my job. See the difference? It's short, it's specific, and it's tied directly to a real-world commitment you have to return to.
Now let's talk about the question, who is paying for your trip? This might seem like it's just about money, but it's deeper than that. The officer is really assessing your financial independence and the strength of your economic ties to your home country. They need to see that you can afford this trip on your own and that you have a compelling financial reason to go back home.
Consider this risky answer. My uncle will take care of everything. When an officer hears this, especially if the uncle is in the US, it immediately increases scrutiny. It suggests a potential dependency. A much safer answer demonstrates self-sufficiency. For example, I am paying for the trip myself from my savings. I have a stable job. This shows you're not just financially independent, but that your job, your income source, is back home.
This next question is arguably the most direct test of your ties to your home country. What do you do? The officer isn't just curious about your job. They are evaluating the stability and strength of your professional life. You have to understand, a stable, long-term career is one of the single strongest pieces of evidence that you will return home.
So a weak answer sounds something like this. I'm doing some work and looking for opportunities. Those last few words, looking for opportunities, are a huge red flag. It can sound like you might be looking for them in the United States.
A strong answer, in contrast, is clear and demonstrates stability. For instance, I work as a software engineer at X company, and I've been there for 3 years. That's concrete. That's stable.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about something very important: the critical red flags that consular officers are trained to identify. These are the specific signals that can quickly lead to a visa refusal.
These are the most common red flags according to official refusal data. Things like having an unclear or shifting purpose for your trip, intending to stay for a very long time, having a weak employment or income history, or no strong family or property ties back home. Vague answers are also a problem, but let me be very clear. The most damaging red flag of all is any contradiction between what you say in the interview and what you wrote on your official DS-160 application form. Consistency is paramount.
This brings us to the single most serious error an applicant can possibly make. We're moving beyond just weak answers now. We're talking about deliberately providing false information. This is known as misrepresentation, and it has severe consequences.
So what is misrepresentation, legally speaking? Well, under U.S. immigration law, it's defined very broadly. It includes outright false answers, but it also includes intentionally hiding critical information. A classic example of this would be applying for a B1/B2 tourist visa when your actual, hidden intent is to find work in the United States.
And please, do not make the mistake of thinking that if you get the visa, the lie is forgotten. It is not. Any misrepresentation becomes a permanent part of your U.S. immigration record. It can surface months or even years down the line, maybe during a future visa application, or at the airport when you arrive, or if you ever apply for a change of status. The consequences can range from visa cancellation all the way to a permanent ban from the United States.
Finally, let's talk about what happens if a visa is refused. It is essential to understand the most common reason for a B1/B2 visa denial because it gets right back to the core purpose of the interview.
The overwhelming majority of these refusals fall under Section 214B of the Immigration and Nationality Act. So what does that mean? In simple terms, it means the officer was not convinced that you are a genuine temporary visitor. It means you failed to overcome the presumption of immigrant intent. Now, it's important to note this is not a permanent ban. However, it does create a permanent record. And if you reapply, you must be able to show a significant change in your circumstances. Otherwise, the outcome is likely to be the same.
So we've gone through the purpose of the interview, the questions, the red flags, and the potential pitfalls. What does this all boil down to? What is the single most important takeaway?
It is this. The USA B1/B2 visa interview is not a test of your confidence. It is a test of your credibility. In a risk assessment scenario, credibility is the only thing that matters. And you establish that credibility with answers that are honest, concise, and completely consistent with your application. A simple, truthful answer will always be more powerful than a confident but questionable one.
We'll conclude there. This has been a detailed, educational overview of the B1/B2 visa interview. But remember, rules and procedures can change. You must always consult the official U.S. government sources for the most current and accurate information before you apply.